Saturday, Kenyans waited with bated breath for President Uhuru Kenyatta to make a major statement on the fate of COVID-19 restrictions, including the nighttime curfew, taking cue from his last address that had hinted on a possible ease of the restrictions. When it was finally time, the alkaline was neutralized by what some will consider a disappointment, while others would see as a blessing. So tonight, we keep tabs the president's address on COVID-19 and its effects on different sectors. Bishop David Oginde of Sitam and Sheikh Kinyanjui weigh in on the impact of the same on places of worship, while on its ramifications to the education sector. We will have the perspective of Dr. Andrew Rasugu Riechi, an education economist. My name is Linda Alela. Let's first take a look at the highlights. President Uhuru Kenyatta extends a national night curfew by a further 30 days, but with reduced hours, as 126 new COVID-19 cases are reported. Business community is delighted with the reduction of curfew hours that will keep their businesses running during rush hours. And the clergy and teachers have to wait much longer to resume duties as the government continues to explore protocols to aid reopening their places of work. Welcome back. This is a Saturday prime time. Once again with me, Linda Alela, sign language interpreter for the night, Faith Cheptile. And in the last 24 hours, Kenya has reported 126 new COVID-19 cases, which brings the total tally nationally to 2,600. Nairobi recorded 8 cases, Mombasa 56 cases, Busia County 54 cases, 53 of them being truck drivers. Migori recorded 3 cases. The counties of Machakos, Kisumu, Nakuru, Uasin Gishu and Kajiado recorded a single case each. 63 more patients have recovered, which brings to the total number of recoveries to 706 people. Unfortunately, 4 more people have succumbed to the virus, raising the number of fatalities to so far 83 people. And President Uhuru Kenyatta has extended the cessation of movement in the counties of Nairobi, Mombasa and Mandera for a period of 30 days following the increase of COVID-19 cases in the 3 counties. Now, further, the president has lifted the partial lockdown in Eastleigh and Old Town, Mombasa.
The long-awaited presidential address finally came, but with more unexpected news. President Uhuru Kenyatta extended partial lockdown in counties of Nairobi, Mombasa and Mandera with further 30 days.
Cessation of movement into and out of the Nairobi metropolitan area, Mombasa and Mandera be further extended by 30 days. That the nationwide dusk to dawn curfew, currently in force until today, the 6th of June 2020, is extended for a further 30 days.
But to Eastleigh and Old Town Mombasa, the presidential address was good news. President Uhuru Kenyatta announced lapsing of lockdown for 2 estates. Further, the president announced extension of the curfew in the country, though adding more hours of freedom starting tomorrow.
That the cessation of movement into and out of Eastleigh area of Nairobi and the specific limitations in force with respect to the Old Town area of Mombasa that is currently in force shall lapse at 4 a.m. on the 7th of June.
With the economy being a major concern to millions of Kenyans, the president says the economic stimulus package of 53.7 billion shillings in place, the economy will get a boost. He urged employers and landlords to be considerate during COVID-19 pandemic era.
I continue to call upon all Kenyans, particularly landlords and employers, to put people before profits during these testing times.
In his economy revival plan, President Kenyatta has also directed the Transport Ministry to come up with a model which will see domestic flights resume.
International travel restrictions are hereby extended. In the meantime, the Ministry of Transport is directed within 7 days from the date hereof to engage all key stakeholders and develop protocols and guide resumption of local air travel.
Elizabeth Mutuku, TV47 Nairobi.
All right, and still so much so on the president's address. All schools in the country will remain closed after President Uhuru Kenyatta announced a gradual return of learning activities beginning September the 1st, 2020, as new educational calendar is set to be drafted. And as Eli Lugova reports, religious activities will remain suspended indefinitely, subject to recommendations by the Ministry of Health, that of the Interior and Council of Religious Leaders. Take a look.
15 million learners countrywide will remain home until at least the 1st of September 2020. Addressing the nation Saturday, President Uhuru Kenyatta announced gradual return of learning activities in third term.
The Ministry of Education, jointly with the Ministry of Health, issue and publicize guidelines on a gradual and progressive return to normalcy in the education sector by the third term, that is, from the 1st of September 2020.
President Uhuru Kenyatta has also directed the Ministry of Education to come up with a new education calendar after the normal calendar was altered by the suspension of learning activities in the country.
Further, that the Ministry of Education shall announce the new school calendar by the middle of August.
Resumption of religious activities in the country remains suspended indefinitely after President Uhuru Kenyatta directed the Ministries of Interior and Health to form a council that will draft recommendations on modalities of reopening religious activities.
The Ministries of Interior and Health will constitute an interfaith council to work out modalities and protocols of reopening of our places of worship.
The President's announcement on resumption of learning activities come at a time when stakeholders from the education sector have called on the government not to consider reopening schools as the coronavirus pandemic curve continues to rise. Eli Lugova, TV47, Nairobi.
And I am now joined live by the chair of the National Muslim Teachers Association, Dr. Sheikh Hassan Kinyua. Good evening, Sheikh.
Good evening, sister.
Yes, thank you so much for your time. So there was optimism that the president would allow places of worship to be reopened, having gone through the Ramadan period in such a state. I mean, what do you make of this, or what are your reactions to the same?
For sure, many of our members countrywide are hoping that today the president will open the mosques. But it's very unfortunate that the mosques have never been opened. In fact, we were anticipating that he will open maybe the mosques in the city centers because they can have the measures and then open the countryside later. But it's unfortunate that all mosques are not open. That's the most unfortunate side of it.
Then a team is said to be made or to be crafted, of course, to ensure that they come up with protocols of reopening religious activities. Looking at this and knowing very well that equally there's been a series of activities and a series of meetings with religious leaders trying to chart the way forward in regards to the same. I mean, does it in a way disappoint you?
Yes, it disappoints us. And also, unfortunately, we as Muslim leaders in Kenya, the Muslim teachers, we are very disappointed because when Matiang'i and Honorable C.S. Kagwe were meeting religious leaders yesterday, they didn't invite our sector, which is very, very unfortunate because they should understand that religious teachers are the ones who are in the ground and the imams. Of course, we are happy that the chair of imams in Kenya was invited, but we wanted also the teachers, the madrasa teachers, because they are the ones who talk to the children, their parents, and the community directly.
You sort of feel like maybe they did not represent you well, or the people who were chosen, of course, to attend these meetings did not address the issues well as expected. I mean, if you look at the recommendations that were presented, would you say then that there are better recommendations and, you know, an assurance that would be given to the government that, again, would let them, of course, loosen the noose and proceed to reopen the worship centers?
Yes, we believe there are better recommendations. Of course, we have compiled a 10-document procedure to open mosques, which, God willing, will reach the minister on Monday morning. By 9 a.m., it will be in his desk, where we believe that our plan was that they open the major mosques in the city, for example, because they are capable. They have money. For example, if you look at Jamia Mosque, you look at Al Huda Mosque in South B, you look at Imtiaz Ali Mosque, where I'm the senior imam, they are capable of doing anything to see people pray. If it is hand sanitizers, if it is automated sanitizer, if it is the 1.5 meter distance, all this we are capable of doing, and I'm so sure there are also other mosques in the cities which are capable of that. They could open that way, then observe what's happening, then open other mosques gradually.
We're looking at huge numbers and minimal space. How possible is it first to even say that we can confidently trust the worship centers to, you know, look at that rule of keeping a social distance?
There's no problem, because since COVID-19 began, we have been teaching our congregants in 47 counties on how to behave. And if you can look at what happened on the Eid day, we thought that 80% of Kenyans will defy the ministry and the government directives. But we did our level best. The government knew what we were doing in the ground. And we know that if people kept at home on Eid day, then I'm so sure then the government can at least do this. For example, we have three options. Option number one, the government opened mosques on other days, not Friday, because it's only Friday when people gather too many in one mosque. But in normal prayer times, only few people go to mosque, so they could have opened that way. And that's why I'm saying maybe the government was not advised professionally. Then after that, they opened Friday prayers after observing how people will do in these other prayers.
Even as we might fault the key figures that have been addressing these, I mean, on several instances, we have witnessed faithfuls float rules or the set rules that have been there, especially when it comes to the aspect of gathering. And they would go to places, you know, open air places in the name of, okay, well, the virus cannot spread in open air. I mean, in the event that the government decides that, okay, we reopen the churches or the worship centers, what then would be the repercussions if at this time where the restrictions are there, they still are proceeding to float the rules?
If anyone flouts the rule, then we call upon the government to take charge, arrest the persons, because we have talked to the people, they know what's supposed to be done. But also at the same time, we are requesting that as soon as the mosques are opened, then each mosque will have to employ their security people. And that's what I'm saying. The four mosques I've mentioned, they already have security in place. They have all measures in place so that the security, and we also have CCTV in our mosques. So it means that anyone who flouts the rules, then the CCTV can also be used later on to go and arrest those people. There's no problem as long as the mosque, most important is to come up with the guidelines. Then the guidelines are submitted to the mosque. So if the mosque feel that we can work on these guidelines, then the mosque be opened. If the mosque feel that we cannot adhere to the guidelines, then the mosque stay closed till when they feel that they'll be okay to open the mosque.
What are you doing to ensure that the recommendations that you have are presented to the president, of course, within these 7 days that he said a committee should be set towards addressing this?
They will receive them on Monday morning, God willing, by 9 a.m. because by yesterday we had consulted scholars from South Africa, scholars from Saudi Arabia, scholars from UK, scholars from America, and we are yet to consult scholars from Nigeria and other 4 countries. And then as soon as we get their views, and then we have Zoom meeting and web meeting, then we come up with a concrete report submitted to the government on Monday, God willing.
Mm-hmm. All right, Dr. Sheikh Hassan Kinyua Omari, thank you so much for your time. And earlier on, I spoke to Bishop David Oginde, the presiding bishop of Christ is the Answer Ministries, and I began by asking him if the clergy were disappointed by the president not reopening places of worship. This is what he had to say.
There was great anticipation that the places of worship would be reopened during the announcement by the president.
Right.
This is because we have spent quite a bit of time interacting with various government leaders at different levels. Mm-hmm. We also submitted our proposals for what we considered would be guidelines that would help us be within what is expected by the Ministry of Health and other leading organizations like World Health Organization.
Could it be that the government was not convinced of the containment and compliance proposals that you had given, or as religious leaders, amid all this series of meetings that were held?
No, I don't think so, because yesterday we had a final meeting with all the government leaders and all religious leaders, and what has guided the decision, as we saw yesterday, and we actually talked about it, was the presentation and data that was given by the experts in this field who have been monitoring the situation and projecting how the pandemic is moving. Yeah. And so that presentation was made to us, and it was clear that whatever protocols we may put in place, what is important is that we hold what measures had been put in place up to this time for at least another 30 days to 2 months.
Contrary to what the president has said, that he will set up a team, or they will set up a team that will craft protocols of reopening religious activities, at least within 7 days. Are you in agreement with that, or is it a little bit contradicting with what you say now?
No. I think what I understood from that, and actually was mentioned yesterday by the CS, was that the 2 groups we have been operating from different, we have not been working together. Yeah. So the church and other religious groups, we have been pursuing what we think would be right, and calling on the government to open up places of worship. The government, on the other hand, has been working on its own protocols and looking at the situation to see how where we are at, and therefore making the pronouncements. But there has not been a convergence of understanding. So what was being proposed was that let's work on this together, let's monitor the situation together, so that when a decision is taken, it will not be one group making a decision for the other, but it will be a collective decision. So that is, in our understanding, is not contradictory, is that now we'll be working together, because the church and other religious groups have been working basically from what we see reported in the newspapers, reported in the daily announcements, without any knowledge of what else could be happening in the background.
All right. So all right.
Yes. So if we were to work together with that common understanding, we have all the details on the table, perhaps it will be easier for us to come to a common decision. Whether that decision is to open up soon or later, it will be a common understanding.
Well, people will still be waiting eagerly for the 7 days that have been talked about and the team consolidated, then one would ask, given that some churches house huge numbers of congregants, what recommendations and assurance would you again proceed to give the government that will ensure compliance to the set COVID-19 rules if allowed to reopen?
We had already done that. We had already given the government our proposals, which are in line with the guidelines that have been given, as I said, by the various medical teams. And so whether it's a big church or a small church, the key things are that we maintain social distancing, we ensure the health of the people who are attending the places of worship, whether that is church, mosque, or temples. We ensure that people wash their hands, put on the masks, and all those things that are required of other Kenyans, that will be, we will make sure that that happens, that there is no sharing of, say, things like hymn books and so on.
Even with such huge congregants like, of course, you host?
Yes, but that will now be our own internal arrangement, because provided that we meet those guidelines, that is what is important. Whether you are a congregation of 15 people or you are a congregation of 10,000 people, the key thing is, have you fulfilled the requirements? That is the main thing.
All right. Now, of what effect has the closure been economically, both to the growth of the ministry and to the country's economy at large?
I think that is in public domain. I mean, the whole thing has really affected individuals, families, businesses, corporates. Everybody's affected, and it's not just in Kenya, across the world.
Right.
So the impact, the economic impact of this closure has been very, very serious on everybody. There are families that are without food. There are families that have been thrown out of their houses because of rent. There are people who have lost their jobs. There are businesses that are literally shut down because they have now they cannot continue. So it's a serious thing. But as the president said, when something like this comes, it is not something that we anticipated, so that we would have been prepared for it. But it has come, so we have to do whatever we can within the circumstances, trying to maintain normalcy as far as possible. But definitely it has had a very negative impact on each and every individual.
All right, Bishop, before I let you go, there are instances where faithful flout the set rules by gathering for worship, mostly in open air areas. And of course, in the excuse that the virus cannot spread on such grounds as there is proper circulation of fresh air. What do you say about this?
I think the key thing here is this virus, from what we hear from experts, is a new virus. Nobody as yet knows exactly how it is transmitted, under what circumstances. So everybody's learning as we go. So I think the best thing is for us to try and keep as much caution as we can. It is better to err on the side of caution than to experiment and find yourself in trouble. Because we have seen situations where even pastors have died in other countries where they had gatherings. So really, the important thing is that if we join our hands together as Kenyans and appreciate that this is something that is unfolding, the government and all of us, none of us really can say for sure. Even the experts are learning this thing as we go along. So the important thing is for us to try and keep safe, and especially keep the lives of others safe.
All right. Thank you so much, Bishop, for your time. And we all are eagerly waiting to know what will come up next out of that. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity.
And on that note, Saturday Primetime takes a short breather. We'll be right back with much more news. Welcome back to Saturday News Night with me. And as we proceed, businesses across the country have welcomed President Uhuru Kenyatta's alteration of curfew hours, with business people optimistic that this could boost their income. According to them, the businesses had been dealt by the current curfew restrictions that lapse tonight. The 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. curfew has been replaced by a new dusk to dawn curfew that will last from 9 p.m. to 4 a.m. starting tomorrow. David Mudhoka has more.
Therefore, effective 7th June 2020, the nationwide dusk to dawn curfew will run from 9 p.m. in the evening to 4 o'clock or 4 a.m. in the morning.
This perhaps the most important announcement that the business community in the country had been waiting for all day. Fingers crossed as President Uhuru Kenyatta rose to the podium at State House this afternoon to deliver his much-anticipated speech regarding COVID-19 restrictions. And as President Kenyatta announced the alteration of curfew hours, the coin seemed to toss in favor of businessmen and women countrywide. And in a months-long rush every dusk that so many businesses implement less productive half shifts. According to them, the previous curfew hours that lapsed tonight had spelled doom left, right and center on them. William Okoth is a driver for one of the matatu circles.
Napoteza skudi kama mbili, karibu shilingi 3,000 hivi. But ametuokolea. Tulikuwa tunaomba kazi ndio zifunguliwe watu warudi kazi.
Now hope for better days is written on the faces of many a business people, with the new curfew restrictions commencing Sunday 9 p.m.
Nilikuwa nafunga 5, sasa na expect nitaanza kufunga 8. Kuanzia 8 9 ndio 9 ndio kwa nyumba. Hiyo masaa unajua watu wanakuanga wakitoka home. Hadi wakitoka kazi sasa na expect mambo itakuwa fiti sasa.
Mimi ni dereva ya Isli. Nimefurahia kufunguliwa Isli kulingana matatu, at least tutapata masaa ya kutosha kufanya kazi.
George Mwangi, a second-hand clothes hawker along Nairobi's Tomboya Street, is now pregnant with expectations of a boom in his mitumba business.
Sasa tunaona mambo itakuwa at least. Juu ilikuwa inafika kama huku tunafungua kazi saa 10, ikifika 6 tushafunga. Sasa tunaonelea sasa kulingana na venye wenyewe amefungua kafi, mambo itakuwa poa sasa.
With most of these business people reading from the same script, they can now afford a smile. With other containment measures still effective, at least it did not end in premium tears for Kenyans.
Now, various groups of business people within Nairobi believe the president's decision to extend curfew hours by 2 hours could be very necessary in adding that much needed extra coin. David Mudhoka, TV47, Nairobi.
And in the fight against coronavirus, the health sector in Kenya seems to be facing numerous challenges, with inadequacy of testing kits and congestion of COVID-19 patients in quarantine facilities. In his address to the nation today, President Uhuru Kenyatta cited the struggling condition of the health sector as one of the main reasons for not reopening the country just yet.
The health sector is key in the fight against the novel coronavirus pandemic. However, in Kenya, this sector seems to be the most struggling. Just recently, the Health CS Mutahi Kagwe announced the government's intention to implement a home-based quarantine protocol as a result of congestion in hospitals across the country. Saturday, President Uhuru Kenyatta announced the stay of coronavirus containment measures by the government due to the poor state of the health sector in the country.
Our healthcare system must be prepared sufficiently to take on a surge in infections. It must not be overwhelmed at any one point during this pandemic. Access to testing, isolation, and quarantine must be a bare minimum in our health facilities. This is not currently the case.
According to the president, most county hospitals are already dealing with a high number of patients and would therefore not be able to handle an increase in the number of patients should the virus spike.
Siaya County has only a 10-bed isolation facility, and already they have admitted 9 COVID patients from only one incident. Similarly, Busia County has a 34-bed isolation facility, and 2 days ago, that facility was full. So, fellow Kenyans, if there is a surge in infections in just these 2 counties, the healthcare system will most definitely be overwhelmed.
And despite the health CA's confidence in the implementation of the home-based quarantine protocol, the president seems to think otherwise, and he questioned the readiness of Kenyans in handling the protocol.
So the hard question to pose here is whether Kenyans are prepared to nurse COVID-19 patients in their homes if our healthcare system cannot handle the numbers. Are they prepared to expose their children, to expose the elderly to COVID-19 patients in the close proximity of home?
President Kenyatta also says despite the government setting aside 5 billion shillings to boost the county hospitals, their capability to handle more COVID-19 patients will take a while.
We have dispersed Kenya shillings 5 billion to the counties in order to assist them increase their healthcare capacity in view of this pandemic. But to build the necessary health infrastructure for such an undertaking requires time.
From the President's 8th address on COVID-19, it is clear that the health sector in Kenya does not have the capability to handle a surge in COVID-19 patients. Therefore, Kenyans will need to be more patient as a rise in these numbers could thrust the country into a twisted crisis. For TV47, I'm Zainab Mohammed.
Thanks, Zainab, for that. And today's address also had its fair share of interesting moments. Kenyans on Twitter have always been known for being on a roll every time. So today, the President acknowledged the online community efforts of creating funny memes about the possibility of country reopening. Joash Onsari reports on the dashed hopes of Kenyan trips. Not yet, Uhuru. That was interesting, Joash. Thank you so much. But then again, we crossed to some bad, fairly good story all the same. As police in Eldoret have confirmed a road accident incident involving Nandi Senator Samson Cherargei. Kapseret County Police Commander Francis Warui said the senator lost control and landed into a ditch at Kapseret Bypass Junction. The accident happened on Friday at 9:05 p.m. at Kapseret Flyover when the senator was driving to Eldoret town from Nandi. The senator was treated at St. Luke's Hospital in Eldoret and was discharged and is now out of danger.
Jana kulikuwa na ajali ambayo ilikuwa inahusisha Senator wa Nandi, Honorable Cherargei. Alikuwa anatoka sehemu za Kapsabet, anakuja sehemu za Uasin Gishu, mahali anaishi hapa Elgon View. Alipofika pale Kapseret, mahali iko flyover inajengwa, sababu ya zile kokoto ziko kwa barabara, chips, ali lose control na gari ikaingia kwa dish. Alipoingia kwa dish, gari iliumia, lakini yeye alipata slight injuries. Police responded immediately na akaenda hospitali where he was akatibiwa na akaruhusiwa kwenda nyumbani. Leo tumeweza kukutana na yeye na nikaconfirm kweli hajaumia sana, sababu ni slight injuries alikuwa nazo. Hiyo ilikuwa ajali kama hizi zile ajali zingine. Na ajali ni ajali. Tumeandika statement yake na uchunguzi inaendelea.
Good news indeed, as the senator is in good shape. Now, one man can indeed make a change. As the world marked World Environment Day Friday, we celebrate this man who has dedicated his farm to tree planting, not to make huge sums of money, but to change the climate of his area that is categorized as semi-arid. Our reporter visited Bekam Dolo and filed this report.
Marking the World Environment Day Friday, we visited one man from the semi-arid part of Embu County who has dedicated his whole farm to tree planting, making a man-made forest of his own. Bekam Dolo, who hails from Beere North, Embu County, has dedicated more than 44 acres of his farm in the semi-arid place in a bid to change the environment in his village. By relying on two seasonal streams navigating through his farm, Ndolo has managed to even create a seedling bed in his expansive farm, Camp Forest. Even with the scorching sun being felt in the area, a sense of change of climate is being experienced around the area thanks to the trees which were planted more than 10 years ago.
Upanzi huu wangu wa miti imebadilisha katika hali ya hewa katika sehemu hii. Kama vile inajulikana, miti upeana hewa safi. Upeana safi. Ile miti nimepanda imenipea hewa safi na majirani na watu in community in general.
Ndolo, who is keen on taking care of his trees, does not count it as a loss the time and money he spends on his farm. Ndolo reveals the trees have not only changed the climate of the area, but also created income for the locals.
Wakati huu nimeenda commercial. Yani ninapashua mbao, alafu mbao ninauza. Alafu kuna miti nakatwa ile ambayo ninaona ime overcrop. Na ingine haina sura, yani imemped, imeobstruct, na hiyo ndio naenda nikitoa.
In order to minimize cutting down of trees to generate revenue, Ndolo has also planted different varieties of fruits in the farm.
Alafu kuna matunda, mashungwa, miembe. Mashungwa ndio inanifaidi kidogo na ndio nimepanda hiyo ikiwa ni baadhi ya income ya shamba.
For Ndolo, he believed the benefits that the community and his family derive from the trees far outweigh the food crop of farming.
Hii miti siwezi kukata kwa sababu ya mahindi. Because mahindi ni kitu ya kuja na kwenda. Tukiprune, hiyo kuni inasaidia wale wafanyikazi ninaandika huku, regular workers. wanaotaka hiyo makuni, alafu wale wanafanya kazi hapa kwa shamba pia tunawasaidia na kuni na wale watu wa Kongwe.
Kenya's current forest cover stands at 7.6%, with the government working towards attaining a 10% national forest cover by the year 2022. Mwege William, TV47, Mbeere North, Embu County.
Now, Kenya Football Welfare Association, KEFWA, is headed to court in protest of Ushuru FC's decision to terminate contracts of 20 players. KEFWA chairman James Situma is adamant that the club violated FIFA regulations. Our reporter Julius Juma tells us the story.
The Kenya Football Welfare Association, KEFWA, will be knocking at the corridors of justice in protest of the decision by National Super League side Ushuru FC of terminating contracts of their 20 players. In a letter that is now in the hands of TV47 Sports Desk, the club states in part, and I quote, "We regret to inform you that we will be ending your term of employment with us as of 1st July 2020. Please consider the aforementioned date as your last day of work," the letter reads in part. It goes on to say, "You are required to return any of the company's material, documents, or equipment to which you had access during the period of your contract." A decision that has rubbed KEFWA the wrong way, with Chairman James Situma equivocally stating that the club did not only violate the rights of the affected players, but also contravened FIFA regulations.
Nadhani pia FIFA walikuwa wametoa mwelekezo kwamba unapata si wakati ambao unaweza waachilia mchezaji. Hata kama mkataba wako umeisha na klabu fulani, unapata kwamba unaruhusiwa uweze kukaa, kufanya negotiation na klabu, uweze kukuweka around. Lengo letu ni kuona wachezaji haki yao imeweza kutendeka. So kuna channels ambazo lazima tufuate kama muungano wa wachezaji, kuona kwamba tumeweza kufikia kwa sababu, na pia tuweze kuona kwamba wachezaji wameweza kupata haki.
The former Sofapaka captain has revealed that the association is bracing up for a legal battle with the taxmen with the sole aim of having the decision rescinded.
Hata mimi nalipa ushuru, so naamini kwamba pesa iko, unaona. So nadhani kwamba wangetumia tu njia mwafaka ya kuona kwamba wachezaji wametoka, but huo ambao ulikuwa wakati ambao haukustahili kabisa, unaona. So kwetu tunaona kwamba wachezaji wana kesi na wamefika kwetu na wametuletea documents zile walipewa, zile barua za termination, na ukiangalia kwa zile barua nilikuwa nasema kwamba hakuna sababu ambayo wameachishwa kazi.
Ushuru has for the last 4 seasons stand out in the second tier after being clouded by relegation in 2016. Reporting for TV47, I'm Julius Juma.
And earlier on, we had stated that we are to have an interview with Dr. Andrew Rasunguriachi, an education economist, on the ramifications of COVID-19 on the sector. But sadly enough, because of some technicalities, we were not able to get a hold of him. But all the same, we say thank you so much for keeping us company. So much feedback coming from you. Yule anasema hii dose inaweza kuweza overdose. There you go. And Yule still, thank you so much for watching. Liz Mukuna says, let's worship in our houses and forget about coming together right now at this time where we're dealing with COVID-19. She says that COVID-19 is real. Samuel Mkubwa says, I am watching all the way from Mwanza TZ. Vladimir Jr. says, I'm watching and following from Kitengela. We have indeed Liz Mukuna again says she's watching from the USA. Ryan Musa says, good job. Thank you so much for your feedback, so much so coming our way, but again we cannot be able to sample all of them because of the interest of time. It was great having you, and on this particular note is where we're going to say that it is a day for Saturday Night News. My name is Linda Alela. I was doing this alongside our sign language interpreter, that is Faith Cheptile. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend.